On today's show, we recap a big win for the Cubs over the Brewers, highlight Seiya Suzuki's first two games since returning from the IL, and then we take a peek at the shortstop market this offseason. That's all ahead on Locked On Cubs. Let's go.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cubs alongside Sam Olber. I'm Matt Cozy. Thanks for making Locked On Cubs your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Sam, the Cubs defeat the Brewers 8-3 in Milwaukee, whatever that park is called nowadays, as a million stadiums change their name. And it was nice to see the Cubs get a win up there tonight. How are you doing? And let's get into it.
Well, Matthew, as I've told you many times, I learned this from my dad when I was about 4 years old. No matter the day that you had, when the Cubbies win, it's always a good day. It's a long day for me today. A lot of things happen, but I can't call it a bad day. Why? Because the Cubs won a ball game. Now, I would like to start out, unfortunately, on a negative note, Matt. I just need to make one quick comment because this happened during the game, and it really struck me and almost ruined the winning experience for me. And I'm curious to see if you picked up on it. Boog Shambi, the Cubs play-by-play man, between talking about scooters or scooting and missing games over the weekend, really dropped kind of a crazy story today and said that David Bote, and I'm quoting here, is feeling the same amount of soreness in his right shoulder today as he did last May 29th when he dislocated it. And David Bote was in the lineup today. The IL is your friend. Okay? The Cubs have managed these injuries so poorly over the last 4 years. Matt, are you with me? You nodding? You want to smile? Something? Are you here?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, you look like you're just staring in place. Stay with me.
I don't know if I'm waiting for a punchline or what's going to happen.
I
get Bodie was on the IL. Now he's back. Continue.
No, but he says that he's still feeling an extreme amount of pain, and
that's not good.
No, and this happened with Zobrist years ago, Baez, Bryant. These things, the Cubs are doing a lot of things right. They are, but there's some things I just can't get over. And managing injuries, just common sense, Matt. Well, why is this guy playing? Put him on the IL.
Well, there's no reason for him to be back early or for them to bring him back early if he does have that much of a problem with his shoulder. And then you compound that with the collision from last week. Yeah, just send him on his way. If he needs a break, give him a break.
Yeah, and Kyle Hendricks left this game early with shoulder soreness. A lot of soreness on this club this evening, but it was a very nice win. We'll talk about Suzuki in a bit. What else did you see from the game, man? Nice day from Ortega, wisdom, took advantage of some Brewers' defensive mistakes for a change. It was a nice win after last night's gut-wrencher.
Yeah, I really liked Ortega's 2 RBI triple
trade chip
there in the 6th. I do think that his value is going way up. I mean, the last even 15, 20 games, maybe even more, he is just playing really well. I like to see that. I do like him in the leadoff spot as well, a place where he's been before. He gives another club a solid 4th or 5th outfielder, a guy who can occasionally start. I thought Ian Happ had a nice RBI hit early. I thought before Swarmer crashed and burned, he actually did okay.
Of course.
And then another thing that I got today, and then Rowan Wick really shut down the threat there with Michael Rucker closing there. But the other note I had from this one, as I consult my my legal pad here, is Nelson Velasquez showing off the arm today.
Great.
3 or 4 times. That we knew he had a plus arm. We hadn't really seen it in action yet. I really like this kid a lot. Moving forward, that's who I want to see in the lineup, is those type of guys in a year like this, in a rebuilding year or a build year, whatever we're going to call it. And I get it. A guy tags up from second, a guy tags up from third. He makes a nice throw. Is it monumental? No, but those are the little things that get a rise out of me.
Yeah, good points with Velasquez. Of course, you got to get your Swarmer compliment in. It was an 8-2 ball game. He walked the
That's
bases.
2 episodes in a row.
He walked the bases loaded with nobody out. That's
Up 8-2.
unacceptable. And the fact that you just complimented on the show makes me contemplate a lot of things. But I'll keep it there. Agree with you on Velasquez. One of the things I see with Velasquez, I see with Morel too, Matt. Very toolsy, right? Speed.
Yeah.
They can throw. Power, things like that. It's funny you mentioned that. I had that on my notes as well. That throw really did stand out to me. Great.
Did you take notes?
No. Great minds think alike, but I know you love notes. You're a big notes guy. But it was a good win. Look, it was a good win for the Cubs today. I'm excited to talk about Seiya. I thought that was the big story there. And tomorrow they're going to try and take, I believe, their 4th straight series, Matt, which is, they've kind of done it quietly. And they're playing the Brewers. They played Boston. They played the Cardinals, some good ball clubs that they've been playing during this stretch outside of Cincinnati. So it was a nice job by them today, especially a nice comeback win. Haven't been many of those. And we'll see.
Yeah, and I feel like in a rivalry game or a game against a rivalry club, it gets you a little more amped up, doesn't it? Like the loss yesterday, it felt it had a little more of a sting just because of what these two franchises have meant towards each other.
I don't like Milwaukee.
Right. So there's definitely some added incentive there. Before we get to Seiya Suzuki's excellent return, I want to tell you about Blue Nile. Make your engagement moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Cubs listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. Use the code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece of wedding bling. Go to BlueNile.com today and use the code Locked On. Sam, Seiya Suzuki is 4 for 9, 2 home runs and 4 RBI in the first 2 games back from the IL. This is going to be a key to watch the rest of the season, and the first 2 games have sure been a bright spot.
And first of all, I'd like to say Blue Nile engagement rings, you won't be needing any of those as long as you continue to support that mustache. Now, Seiya Suzuki, I'm just kidding, guys. This is just our thing. You know what I mean? Just let us do our thing, okay? Easy.
That was a sharp one.
No, thank you. It's been a long day.
If we can weave those into the formatics here, I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, no, good. Nice headphones. Suzuki's really stood out, obviously. And Matt, he was actually hitting the ball really well in Iowa before he got here. Look, here's what I'm going to say about Suzuki. Later in the show, we're going to talk about some hopeful future pieces. This is a guy that has to be a part of the future. You gave him 5 years, $100 million. We haven't seen a lot. He got off to a red hot start. He was the talk of the league, the obvious rookie of the year candidate. Then he started to struggle. He got overly selective, was striking out, looking a lot, didn't look himself, and then he got injured. With all that being said, I think you might have the numbers in front of you. His OPS now is well over 800. I think he's in the 820s or something like that after today. I just think I have a gut feeling. I've been watching baseball a long time. I just think this guy's a hitter. I'm a little bit concerned about his health because he had some ankle injuries in Japan before he came here. Then he had a little ankle issue early on in the year, and then the thumb issue. These guys, Stroman, Suzuki, Horner, some of these really key parts to the Cubs' future have to be available. So I am a little concerned about that. But in terms of him on the field, he's adjusted to right field defensively. He's got a cannon of an arm. It's accurate. And I just think this guy's going to hit. I just think he's a hitter. I know we haven't seen a lot of him, but I just think over his time in Chicago, he's going to hit. And that's just my opinion. It's only been 2 games back. Maybe he's just starting out hot again. Maybe another slump's coming. But I just think over the course of 162, this guy is going to be a hitter on the team. I think he can handle good pitching too. And I think that I'm pretty confident that he's going to be the right fielder for the Chicago Cubs for the next 5 years.
Yeah, and I think like with any other player in baseball, especially at this level, there's going to be ebbs and flows. I almost didn't even realize how long he was really out. He was out a long time, from late May to early July. that's a giant chunk of the season. Some would say is really the key part of the season, that first third, first 40%, as we hit the halfway point, I believe. Any day now, by the way, we'll take stock of the club as we're 82 ball games in, or 81 rather. But then right after he comes off the IL, boom, 2 defining moments in both games that he's back. I mean, there was a report from, and again, we'll get into to Marquee on Friday's episode, but Taylor McGregor claims that the dugout was buzzing as much as it has been all season after the Seiya inside the park home run.
Great.
And it was a great moment. To put the Cubs up in that situation was huge. And then he puts them up again today in the top of the 5th. So good moments. He was hitting the ball hard in Des Moines as well. He made good contact even before the home run yesterday. So that's really great to see. And I think that he might be the largest storyline of the second half.
Sure.
I'd have to do a little more reflecting on that, but I'm not sure there's much more in that team photo in terms of storylines in the second half. I think he must be the biggest one.
Well, I think you're forgetting the dynamic and dangerous offensive profile of Yan Gomes. But outside of that, yeah.
That's
sure.
Right. That's easy to forget.
And also former Cub Jonathan VR with an 0 for performance today in the leadoff hole for the LA Angels.
Thanks for the update.
That Amazon thing's still coming in there. But yeah, I agree. I agree with what you said. I think he'll be the storyline. Again, he is in the Horner category for me, where I just think just as long as he's healthy, he's going to perform. Maybe that's just me, but that's what I think on Suzuki, and I'm really excited to watch him. Throughout the rest of his Cubs career, I think he could hit.
Yeah, and he offered something that the Cubs haven't had the last few years, which is the contact play. You have that with Horner, you have that with Ortega, you have that with a lot of guys.
Well, he strikes out a lot.
Seiya does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so early indications that he strikes out a lot. But does he have the contact tool in there?
Yeah.
Is he able to diversify the lineup a little bit at least?
Yeah, nice recovery. Keep going.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned Wisdom in the opening segment. He's a guy that has proved to be a good major league player. What are some things that you've seen from him that you like? Because he could be a piece for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I don't want to go too long here because I want to talk a lot about the future stuff. But with Wisdom, I think we've talked a lot about it off the air. Patrick Wisdom has made the case that he should be, in major consideration to be the starting third baseman for the Cubs next year. He's not a guy that should be hitting 4th or 5th. You kind of want to, in a good lineup, hide him in the 6th, 7th hole for him to hit home runs. He's not going to get a lot of clutch hits. He's going to strike out a lot, although his strikeout rate is way down the last month or so. But, and his defense, to be honest, hasn't been what it was early in the year. But with all that being said, he's still playing pretty average defensive third base, and he's going to hit 30 home runs from the third base position. That's plenty. So I think he's done a really nice job for the Cubs, and he's hit some big home runs this year. And there's some pieces here.
You have Wisdom as a potential piece on the left side of the infield. You have Horner playing really well at shortstop, but he might be sliding over to second base in 2023, as the Cubs are sure to be active members of the shortstop market this offseason. Sam, what would you say the odds are, just real quick, that they would be active in that market?
I think the odds are very, very high and probable that they are going to land one of the major free agent shortstops. Matthew?
Hey, speaking of odds, if you were to place some futures bets on one of these players that we're going to talk about landing with the Northsiders, you can do that with BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including all things baseball. Head to betonline.net or download the app to learn more about the trends and action. Bet Online, where the game starts. And where we start this third and final segment is with that shortstop market. Carlos Correa is a free agent this offseason, Sam. Xander Bogaerts, Trey Turner, and Dansby Swanson. Not a bad quartet at all if you're a team in need of a solid player at the sixth position.
Yeah, so big news really today in the last 24 hours. So Carlos Correa yesterday made headlines that the Cubs made a pretty good offer to him, but he didn't want to be a part of a rebuild. So he decided to play for the Twins. And then this morning, Bob Nightingale tweeted out or spoke that he had heard from a lot of GMs that the expectation is that this offseason the Cubs will sign Xander Bogaerts. So those two things there, I think it's a lot to unpack, and I think it's really important. I would be shocked if one of those two guys wasn't on the Cubs. I think Trey Turner is going to end up going back to the Dodgers, but I think one of those two are going to be Cubs. Now, as far as the Carlos Correa thing goes, I think it was a little bit of an unnecessary shot with the Cubs because if you add Carlos Correa to this current team and the Cubs had some sort of pitching health, they would not be in a rebuilding phase this season. Mm-hmm. And by the way, Javier Baez, who was a free agent last year, signed with a lesser team. There's Chris Bryant signed with a lesser team. These guys go where the money goes. Okay. And I respect Carlos
Correa.
Almost
always.
I respect Carlos Correa for saying that. And even with that being said, the Cubs are going to be in a way different position this offseason, upcoming offseason than they were in the past offseason. So I wouldn't read too much into that. As far as Bogaerts go, I've really heard a lot that that's where the Cubs are connected. Now, it's funny, Matt, that you mentioned that Nico Hoerner would slide over to second because Nico Hoerner has been better defensively than both those guys by a significant margin this year, according to the metrics. So I do think if it's a deal breaker, I think the Cubs will just say, hey, it might not make as much sense, but let's just have, Bogaerts' bat's worth it. Let's put him at short. We'll put Hoerner at second. Bogaerts has been one of the most consistent hitters in baseball at the shortstop position for the last 6+ years. His any metric that you could come up with is pretty above average. He's a contact guy. He's a high average guy. I actually think he hit a homer tonight. But I think it's imperative that the Cubs get one of those guys. I think it'll really help them going forward, obviously, but adding another middle infielder will help. Adding another contact high average bat will help. You take a lineup now, you have Hoerner in it, you have Bogaerts in it, you have Suzuki in it, maybe you have Happ in it. You're talking about some pretty tough outs there. I know you're potentially going to lose Contreras, and we'll talk all about that, but there's some bats that are coming up in AAA. The Cubs offense isn't terrible right now, and I think there's some ways that it could jump up to be pretty tough to get out on a consistent basis if they get those guys.
Yeah, Bogaerts is a guy that I really like. If I had to dissect the four guys in my mind, as you said, I'm not really looking at Trey Turner because I guess I would consider that more of a pipe dream, to use an old term. Does he stay on the West Coast? Does he go back to the East Coast? I've heard that as well. We'll see. I don't see why he couldn't play in the Midwest, but I could see that being just a quick, hey, Dodgers give him the money. Okay, that's wrapped up. Dansby Swanson has had a nice year with Atlanta. He's a world champion. He has a good resume. He's put in his time. I don't get as jacked up about that, but he would be a solid player. And then you have Bogaerts and Correa. I don't think you'd go wrong with either player. Jed Hoyer has some history with Bogaerts going back to his Red Sox days and signing Bogaerts in the international free agent market. So there is some history there. There is some connections. And for Bob Nightingale to say that this morning on The Score, I think is certainly newsworthy, saying several executives think the Cubs will be the landing spot for him. So that's something to watch out for. It's no sure thing that Correa opts out with the Twins.
Yes, it is.
But if he does, he'll be a top target for many.
It's a sure thing.
And you think it's a sure thing?
Unless he gets hurt.
Yeah. Can I read you the quote that he told The Athletic?
Sure.
The Cubs were interested, but it felt like they were in a rebuilding phase. I've always been on winning teams, and I've always had winning seasons.
Right.
rebuilding phase isn't something I want to be a part of. That's the end of the quote. Later in the story, he did credit the environment at Wrigley and the fan base, but certainly it grabbed a headline or two today.
Yeah, right. Which we already debunked. But let me tell you this: can I just eliminate Swanson for a second?
Yeah,
Because do you want to know why I want to eliminate Swanson? It's no disrespect to him.
sure.
I don't love guys that are historically mediocre hitters and then having a breakout year the year before free agency, because it reminds me of a certain right fielder for the Cubs that wears number 22 that got paid a lot of money. His name's Jason Hayward. Remember he had that really nice year with the Cardinals before the Cubs signed him, and he hasn't even come close to that since. I'd rather, if you're going to spend that type of money, Matt, if you're going to invest in that type of player, be safe and take the guy that's extremely consistent. If Bogaerts comes here and doesn't hit, that's not your fault. That's just a shock. That would just be a shocker, right? I mean, the guy's hit his whole career. And let me tell you why sneakily I like Correa and Bogaerts a little better than Trey Turner if this is a long-term deal.
Okay.
Trey Turner, I think in the short term, provides more, like you said, kind of, like is more of an intrigue because of his speed and things like that. But he's super reliant on speed and athleticism, and we don't know how that ages, right?
Right.
Bogaerts has that hit tool, and that hit tool is usually the last thing that goes away for a hitter. If you can hit, you're going to hit well into your mid-30s. You just are. If you're relying on infield hits and 40, 50 steals a year, that's not going to make the mid-30s. So, and Correa's falls under that. Like, I'm not complaining if we get Correa, but that's why I actually, in a weird way, I've decided I want either Bogaerts or Correa a little more than Turner, so that deal ages a little bit more gracefully. That's just my opinion. I don't really, have much to back that up, but I just do think that's kind of a case with a guy like that. So, look, we all know the Cubs have a lot to do in the offseason. There's been enough,
and they're going to have the money to do it.
Yeah, and you hope they're not in a position where they have to extremely overpay to get these guys, because the fact that these reports are leaking out this early before the offseason, I think the expectation now is among Cub fans that they have to get one of these guys. I hope they deliver it.
Right.
But if they do, I think one of those guys plus a frontline starting pitcher, it starts there, trickles down, get some of these guys in the minor leagues continuing to do what they're doing, and they're not that far away. But do a better job reporting injuries, please. If guys are sore, put them on the IL. We don't need to watch one-arm David Bodie try and get a bunt down when there's guys in the minor leagues for that.
He looked lost on that bunt.
Yeah, lost defensively because the guy's in pain.
He's trying to play a major league ball game.
Yeah, I mean, if I had a dislocated shoulder, it'd be a miracle if I was able to put together a P, B, and J.
Oh, man. That's a fun second show right there. Well, yeah, a lot. Yes, we know how the intro sounds. But if I can ever fire it, by the way, on time, that's 2 episodes in a row.
Yeah. Something's going on with that. Let's just have a second. So, yeah, do a little better with that.
Yeah, I'd almost like to try it right now.
No.
I'm not going to. But yeah, I mean, I click show and it doesn't come up.
Right.
I have to hit it like a second time. I guess I have to practice.
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that with a couple episodes. Don't be too hard on yourself.
Right. I wasn't planning on it. Good second show. Okay, it was enjoyable. The Cubs certainly have a lot to do. We're going to talk about it all here on Locked On Cubs. They're going to have some money in their coffers as well. I did read a piece in The Athletic today, by the way, Sam. Entering the 24 season, as the team is currently constructed, only Suzuki and Bodie have guaranteed deals going to 24. So they just need to compose a roster, the next several months, and it'll be interesting to see how they do all that.
Wrap the show.
Oh, boy. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to this new edition of Locked On Cubs. It was fun looking at some of the feedback today, and you can enter the feedback zone as well. You could follow us on Twitter at Locked On Cubs. If you're watching the YouTube version of the show, you can see our handles right there. Also, you could leave us a voicemail or send us a text, 312-834-4634. On tomorrow's program, we wrap up this Cubs-Brewers series while also peeking ahead more towards the future, as only a couple hours ago, MLB.com updated their top 100 prospects list. And then on Friday's show this week, that's going to be all about the Marquee Sports Network.
Tune in.
That's right. That's right. Also, make sure to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcast. Subscribe to Locked On Cubs on YouTube as we make the push to 1,000 subscribers. And we did all the other propers there as well. Thanks for making Locked On Cubs your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB Prospects, which I believe Sam is going to record a video for. Or actually, you already did, right?
Correct.
Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. For Sam Olber, I'm Matt Cozy. This is Locked On Cubs.